Does Irish paganism have an equivalent to the Norse tree of life? Well, Daggy August Falcha. Hi, hello, and welcome. Jon O'Sullivan, Irish Pagan School here. And this is the cast or question we have from our community there today. And so the community member is asking, the partner, I believe, is a Norse pagan and follows a lot of the imagery and the information that comes along from their practices, and they're wondering about like the iconic nature of Yggdrasil in the Norse mythology and this central tree of life we see in other pantheons and other mythologies and spiritualities around the world. This uh, tree of life structure for explaining spirituality or reincarnation or any number of different things. And so this individual is wondering, does Irish paganism have some equivalent, or is a lot of the imagery and iconography around this predominantly neo-pagan? Well, neat answer, not hard to say. No, there is no tree of life in essence in Irish paganism. So, like Yggdrasil is very much squarely Norse paganism, and though the Norse did come to Ireland, of course, and there was integration and Norse kind of kingdoms, I suppose, set up on the island a long time ago, there was never actually a crossover in the belief structure into paganism in Ireland. That said, trees do hold a very significant place in Irish culture and indeed ancient Irish culture, which we know from a number of different resources. And some of this is absolutely quite fascinating. So, we know that our Irish ancestors had a lot of reverence for trees and indeed a lot of focus on conservation of trees because we have an 8th century legal document known as the Bretha Comaithchesa, which is the Judgement of Neighbourhoods. So this is a legal text written down in Irish in the 8th century, and it classifies trees based on their economic and cultural values. But the cultural values of the cultural value of a tree to a tribe or a community, in essence, is almost its significance or indeed some aspects of spirituality. So within the Bretha Comaithchesa, this Judgment of Neighbourhoods, they specifically categorize different types of trees. And so there's a section known as the Adig Fedo, which is the Lords of the Wood. And the Lords of the Wood are said to be the most sacred and the most valuable trees. Then there's the commoners of the wood, which is the achic fedo, which are useful, very useful woods, but they're not prestigious. They don't carry the same cultural value in that essence. Then there is the lower divisions of the wood, and they are known as the fola fedo, which are smaller trees or shrubs. And lastly, there is the bushes of the wood, which is the losa fedo, and those are wild plants or hedgerow species. Now, it does actually break down within the Bretha different trees that fall into those categories. We know that there are 7 Lords of the Wood, and they are, I probably should have jotted those down. They are, yeah, oak, Scots pine, crabapple, yew, oak, Scots pine, crabapple, yew, hazel, ash, and oh, I'm missing one. I need to fill in the gap in my own education on that one. But these 7 trees are said to be the most sacred and the most valuable for what they do. And the reason value is not just based on intrinsic value or cost for the lumber itself, it's also the significance and the role it plays. Like a lot of them would give fruits or foods, or would serve particular purposes spiritually. So harm or damage to those trees or excessive harvesting of those trees could lead to a financial repercussion or penalty for damage to those particular trees. So that's one thing I find absolutely fascinating about this Comachiesa and this judgment of neighborhoods. Yeah, okay, there's rules around how you can plant your land or work your land and what you can grow and what you can't grow, but there's also rules about conservation. Like, okay, you can harvest this amount this year, but you can't harvest the next year. Like it does really break it down in a lot of fascinating detail. So we know there was a lot of significance about trees in Ireland, and actually Ireland itself, we can say historically that the first trees came into Ireland about 13,000 years ago, and some of the species of trees developed rather uniquely in Ireland because it was a separate, different environment to grow compared to other areas around the world, other mainland continents, etc. Um, so I've talked a lot about the physical trees, the belief in the structure of trees, the law about trees, but does this mean that there was no spiritual association with trees? No, absolutely not. There definitely was a spiritual association with trees, not just because some trees were used as a coronation site or a swearing in or an oathing site for chieftains. In fact, one of the most horrible and terrible things you could do to a tribe that you were trying to conquer would be to cut down their sacred tree, where all of their ancestors had been sworn or oathed into rulership. This did actually happen to very famously one of the last great kings in Ireland, Brian Boru, in Thomond. So we know there was a lot of importance around these trees, but there was a spiritual significance going right the way back to our mythological cycle. And the one I like to point out is the the creation of the Ogham script. So it's said that the god Oma, champion of the Tuatha Dé Danann, created Ogham just to prove he could. And the creation, the first Ogham that was carved was a figure known as Beth, and Beth was said to be based on 7 birches, which were designed to go around Lu's wife so that she wouldn't be kidnapped into the other world on their wedding night. So now, again, Ogham isn't only about trees. Ogham is a very in-depth, very detailed alphabet and structure in which to learn and to look like linguistically, and then you can look at it spiritually as well. But the fact that the first Ogham was carved on birch to defend or protect a bride on her wedding night shows that there was this importance or connection with the wood, in essence, in this instance, birch, but not the only tree with spiritual connotations and connections. We have, of course, hazel. Hazel is one of the lords of the wood. I don't know if I mentioned that earlier, but the hazel is said, like even now, there are people who do professional dowsing and divination in Ireland to find water. What they use is a branched or a forked piece of hazel. But that does go right the way back to our mythology as well, because it was said that hazel tree in the other world, there's a hazel tree, I believe it's in Bretha, which is the home of Midr. And this hazel tree is said to be a source of knowledge. And then the hazelnuts that fall from that tree go into a pool below, the pool of wisdom and understanding, where they are consumed by salmon. And all of this imagery might bring to mind a very famous piece of Irish folklore story mythology about Fionn McCool, who is said to have eaten or consumed all of the knowledge of everything by tasting the salmon of knowledge. And so when we trace that back into the mythology, the knowledge comes from this otherworld hazel tree. Now, this doesn't connect any of these trees to a tree of life symbolism. It's not that the world is based on the trees and structures at all. No, but we do definitely have a lot of very interesting, a lot of very fascinating information to gain and to learn and to experience and to integrate in respect to native Irish trees and the wisdom that we can take from it. So much so that my partner has done an entire course on the wisdom of ancient Irish trees, their ancient lore, spiritual connection, and even give simple rituals and practical tree magic to engage in as well. So I will put a link to that down below, so anyone who is interested can go and take that course, because it does go into, I referenced it myself when I was trying to answer this question. I was like, you know what? I could go to all the books, or I know a greater source where it's already been laid out, and Laura has done the work on that. So I would definitely recommend checking out that course, checking out that information. But to loop it back to the question or Kesht at the start, no, there is no Irish equivalent to the tree of life in Norse paganism, but trees definitely were very important to our ancient Irish ancestors. If you're looking to pick up more information, do watch other videos. Make sure you subscribe to our content and go to irishpagan.school/free to find a whole list of other free resources you can explore and expand your boundaries of information and knowledge with Irish paganism there. Until next time, look after yourself. Take care. Agus Slán. Goodbye.